everyone, and welcome to this episode of Peace Talks. This is a series where we catch up with the bands and artists that are going to be performing for us at the Mars Bar in Worcester. And today we have Ben Creighton Griffiths from the band Chube. So thanks for joining us today, Ben.
That's all right, no problem at all. Happy to be here.
And as you can see, Ben is sat in his music room with a harp, which we're going to be talking about soon because it's a very interesting development, I think, in the music that we will be talking about. So, yeah, Ben, let's get to know you a little bit. So you're currently based in Wales, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm based in Cardiff. I've been here sort of all my life actually. And I'm originally from a classical background, and I still do a lot of classical playing and playing in orchestras and stuff like that. But over the last sort of 15 years, really, I've pivoted more towards jazz, which was something I studied on the piano, but then looked to kind of transfer across to the harp. And then I just really sort of in the last decade or so, I've really focused towards playing more jazz music as a soloist and also in ensembles, and kind of the broad spectrum of jazz as well. So I do quite a lot of traditional and early jazz, but then also much more newer and modern stuff like I do with Chube. So kind of a bit of a variety of things really. But yeah, I'm lucky I get to do a lot of I get to play with orchestras one day and the next kind of play in a jazz club, which is always kind of a bit of fun. So
Yeah, because I saw you've got as well as Tube, you've got the Transatlantic Hop Club.
yeah, so Transatlantic Hop Club is it's basically the music of Django Reinhardt and Stefan
Yeah.
Grappelli. And I run that with a mate of mine, Adrian Chevalier, who is he's from Avignon in France, but he's been based in New York for the last 12 years. And we run that together, and it's a flexible lineup, and we tour in the UK and US and France. And that's all very, very traditional and gypsy jazz and swing and that sort of stuff. So I get my traditional fix with that sort of thing.
Cool. And then also, yeah, you mentioned some of the sort of orchestral stuff that you're doing. I noticed that you've been working on a concerto for jazz, harp, and symphony orchestra.
Yeah, so I wrote that in 2022. I had a commission from one of the symphony orchestras that I've been playing with for years, and they said, "Oh, you've been playing with us for a while, so we'd love you to come and do a concerto." And although I still do a lot of classical playing, one of the things I've moved away from is doing classical concertos because it takes months, often 6, 9 months of prep just for like one concert. And so I kind of suggested to them, oh, what would be cool is if maybe I wrote like a jazz one and then I could improvise most of it on stage instead of having to like write it all out. And they said yes, but then of course I had to spend 9 months writing all the orchestra parts. But yeah, so I didn't really think it through. But actually, it was really good that they took it up because it was a lot of fun, and I've always enjoyed composing, but I've never before that written for a really large scale group in this way. And it's great. And we premiered it in March 2023. And since then, I've played it another 2 times. I've got another 3 performances of it scheduled for next year, including, well, I'm going to be playing outside of the UK for the first time in September. We're still working out details. But yeah, so that's pretty cool as well. And it's been a nice project to bring both sides of my working life together because it's still rooted in sort of obviously classical way of writing for orchestra, but then we're playing jazz rhythms, I'm improvising, we've got a drum kit in the band, that sort of stuff. So it's yeah, it's been a nice little project to tie everything together. Actually, it's something I've always wanted to do. So
Excellent. So where did it all start for you, sort of musically? Do you come from a musical family, or is it something?
yeah, so my mum's a professional flautist, completely classical, and she had a flute and harp duo with my godmother, who's the harpist. And I mean, around the time I was born, that year they did like 120 gigs or something. So they were super super busy, and I was around the harp from a very young age. For whatever reason, I chose the monstrosity that's really hard to move about and take to do gigs instead of the flute, which you can just kind of put in your pocket. But from the age of 3, I was badgering my parents that I wanted to play the harp. And I started on the piano when I was 3. And then when I was 4, I was finally able to start the harp. And that's when I sort of started playing. And then all throughout my childhood, it was very much dedicated to learning music to classical music to a lot of competitions around the world and a lot of performing and stuff like that. And then jazz came a little bit later than that. I think I was about eight or no, maybe I was like 6 or 7 actually. And I saw a jazz pianist who was playing in the local Pizza Express in Cardiff.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. And I went up to him and I was like, "Oh, I play piano and I'm playing a bit of harp. Can I like have lessons?" And that was a guy called Julian Martin, who went on to teach me jazz piano for years and years afterwards, and kind of like gave me the absolute foundation of everything that I needed.
Brilliant.
And he was also super helpful at getting me to like transfer from the piano to the harp, and that's sort of where I've ended up now.
Great. And so, yeah, and you were saying about the cumbersome instrument. I remember seeing your Instagram post from I think earlier this year when you were out in New York,
Oh,
transporting it on the subway.
yeah, we took a harp on the A train. It was great. Well, it wasn't great actually. It was a really awkward experience. Yeah, Manhattan with a harp is an absolute nightmare. I'll tell you that. Yeah, and then of course with the band with Chube, it's not just the harp; it's keyboards, it's electronics, it's gear, and then we've got basses and drums. It's all yeah, we've got all the big instruments in the band, which is ideal. So
There you go. Still portable equipment to some
yeah.
extent. Yeah, I wanted to sort of just get your thoughts on the harp because it's an instrument that's kind of not at all been on my radar until probably yeah, I suppose in the last 3 or 4 years with Alina Brzezinska. Who's the Ukrainian Polish harpist that's
Mm.
with a hip hop collective, and she's done some collaboration with Tony Kofi as well. So I think there's a feature of with her in Jazzwise last year, maybe the year before that I
Mm.
kind of but then since then I think yeah. So with Tube, I found out about Tube through is it Ken at the OCC in
Yeah, yeah.
Malvern? Because
Come
I
back.
think he booked you a couple of years ago, didn't he? And
Yeah.
I went to see Treacherous Cretins there that he'd a Frank Zappa band that he put on, and he mentioned that he tried to book you again, but there's problems in the venue or something. So yeah, I think I can't remember if you'd also contacted me at the same time, but that sort of came up around that time as well.
Yeah, Ken saw the premiere of the concerto in Malvern, and then it was
Right.
actually I didn't meet him that night. He was chatting to my dad, and my dad was like, "Oh, Ben's got this band," and then Ken booked us for the prog rock night, and then yeah, and he'd mentioned about you, and I think it was yeah, everything kind of aligned at the same time, sort of thing. So
Yeah, cool. Because then since then, I had another Catriona Bourne had contacted me. Look, interested in playing. Unfortunately, at the moment, I haven't got any slots on my program. But also, yeah, last week I saw Amanda Whiting because I went to
yeah,
the Jazz Promotion Network conference in Bristol, and they have showcases. And she was also playing, and that was very much a sort of jazz fusion trio, electric bass and drums with that. Really enjoyed that. So it's yeah, it's kind of it's a bit like when you get a when you buy a new car and then you sort of drive around and you notice
yeah.
all the others that are on the road, but they kind of go past it. So is it something that you've kind of outside of the classical world that you've that is actually sort of making a bit of a noise in the scene, or is it always been there and
I mean, so it's a bit of both, really. It has always been there in the sense that you can go back to Alice Coltrane, Dorothy
Hmm.
Ashby, Harpo Marx even is considered sort of doing a little bit of early jazz on the harp. So it's always been there. I think there's definitely been a bit of a renaissance the last sort of 10 years. Because I mean, like, some of the names you mentioned there, like Amanda and myself, Tara Minton in London, there's a whole bunch of us who have been at this for decades,
Hmm.
for a long, long time. I think maybe so. Well, like everything, some of it's down to sort of being able to get a little bit more sort of out there with social media and all that sort of stuff. I think that certainly helped. But I think maybe as well, there's been a bit of a tipping point that people who run gigs and festivals and whatever maybe have been able to start taking it, or willing to start taking a few more risks, because there's some, not to be too like negative, but there's still some places that are pretty conservative in their programming sort of
Yes.
choices. And to be honest, it's the same in the classical world. Actually, the harp still now is not taken as seriously as the piano or the violin or the cello when it comes to being a solo instrument.
Mm.
You know, and it's a bit of sometimes it's seen as a bit of a, I don't know, a bit twee, a bit naff, a bit of a like kind of too nice and gentle and all that sort of thing. And I guess maybe that sort of opinion of it has gone beyond the classical world as well. And so then you turn up at a jazz club and say, "Hey, I play jazz harp," and they're kind of like, "Nah, we're all right, thanks. You know, that's not for us." But I think maybe now it's the fact that it's more accessible to listen to different things
Hmm.
online, or and to see stuff on YouTube. I think maybe it's just beginning to actually break through that barrier, and so now people are willing to sort of take the leap. And also maybe because there's more of us having a go at doing jazz on the harp and kind of promoting different projects, because everyone's doing things slightly differently. And you've got that breadth of styles, and showing that the harp is just as versatile as like the piano. I think as well, that's, you know, one festival sees, oh, they booked a harpist, well, maybe we
Right.
could do
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
same, and it goes on like that. And my hope is, you know, in 20 years, it'll be, people won't bat an eyelid when they see a
Mm.
jazz player on the harp, jazz on the harp, or when they're thinking of, you know, someone's coming up with their new musical project, and they think, oh yeah, we'll have a harp in it. In the same way that they think, oh, we'll book a guitarist and a bassist and a drummer and whatever. So that's where I think it's headed, and it's just been a combination of things. And you know, maybe it's the best part of 60 years, 70 years of various pioneers around the world, and it's just beginning to really break through now. That's my thoughts
Mm.
anyway.
Cool. And in the band, you mentioned as well that you play keys, but and you've had some did you do sort of classical piano as well? And
Yeah.
yeah.
I studied classical harp and piano, and then jazz on both as well. So,
Yeah. So I'm intrigued to know when you're writing, because you do, you know, obviously write a lot of your own material. What's do you tend to write sort of on the harp and put things together on the harp or on the piano, or is it a mix of both, or
um,
focus? How do you go about writing?
so yeah, it's a bit difficult. I don't have for Chube, I don't really have like a unified. Sorry, I don't really have a unified process when it comes to writing, because it's very much my vehicle for kind of just doing whatever idea pops into my head. And sometimes the idea for a certain piece will suit one, you know, a bit more on one instrument than on the other. Though I'm careful not to write the harp out too much, because it is kind of the most unique aspect, I guess, of the band in the instrumentation and stuff, is the fact that it's you know, it's a harp led jazz fusion trio. So I do try and consciously put the harp most of the time at the center of most compositions. That's not always the case. I mean, there's still pieces, even on our last EP. There's one of them that there is no harp in; it's just keys on my ends, just because it can break up the texture a bit. But I do try and focus more on the harp if I can, and where I can put more material on this instrument, as opposed to just like sitting on the keys too much.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, let's talk about Chube then, the trio. So I believe you formed originally in around 2015, is that right? It was just you and a drummer, wasn't it, at the time, I think?
Yeah, my mate Matt, we just said, oh well, we should just, you know, we should just do some more playing together. And Matt's he's a really good engineer as well, and for a while had a studio in London, so it was kind of great because we could play and also he could like record everything and whatever. And then originally we had Aidan Williams on bass, and then various things. Obviously, the pandemic, we had the lineup change. Matt moved to London and things. So um, Ashley John Long came in on basses, and
Hmm.
Ash I've known for years, and he plays with my trad jazz band quite a lot, and he's a doctorate in musicology at Cardiff Uni, and you know, he does classical, he does free jazz, modern, traditionally. He's a wonder. He's amazing. So he's come in to do bass, and he plays. We've always had both upright and electric in the set. So some pieces that need a bit more sort of punch on them, sort of the more upbeat disco grooves, have electric, and then we've got more ambient stuff with the acoustic. And then not long after the pandemic, I met John Bradford Jones, who's now the drummer
Yep.
for the band. And I didn't actually know John was at uni with Ash, which is great. They already knew each other. And John, he's been a session drummer and played with all sorts of bands across every style, which is exactly what I wanted because the styles with the music that we have are very, very different from track to track. So yeah, and it's a nice blend. And I should also shout out, we also have Cameron Saint who comes and does bass for us sometimes because Ash is super, super busy. And Cameron's a great up and coming bassist from the Royal Welsh College as well. So yeah, it's a good group. And at the moment it's working really nicely as a trio. I have ideas for expanding eventually, but for now the trio is working really nicely.
Excellent. And you're quite experimental with the sounds as well that you get from the harp. So some of it is just the sort of natural. I know you sort of frame it as electroacoustic music. So some of it is very much as you'd expect a harp to sound, and some of it is very much as you would not expect a harp to sound, I suppose, with the capabilities you got with electronic processing of sound now. So how would you sort of describe the music for anyone who's not heard the band before coming down Thursday? What they got to look forward to?
So I mean the number one word Matt and I always used to use to describe Chube is unmarketable. But in a good sense of it being, I mean, it's not great for promoters, I guess, but no, in the sense that it is kind of something for everybody because my music taste is really wide in terms of what I listen to. And it very much is, I go through a phase of listening to some cool, like funky stuff. So I want to write something in that pattern. So, we like you said, the harp, we change up the sound. So if you like the sound of the harp, you're gonna like you're gonna sort of like what we do. But then if you also like rock guitar and Led Zeppelin, for example, then you can come and hear a harp but playing some Led Zeppelin. Or we have some disco grooves in there. We've got some a little bit of sort of traditional jazz as well. It's really varied. And there is something there for everyone, and I think there's something that everyone can kind of like enjoy. Some bits more than others, I guess, depends on your taste. But yeah, we try not to. I certainly don't take myself too seriously. So it's meant to be kind of quite just music to enjoy, rather than being anything too intellectually demanding. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at, So
fantastic. Well, I've been listening to because you had I think you had an EP out in 2017 that came out.
The very first one was I think it's about then, and then our second one came out last year, about just over a year ago, and then we got a couple of singles and stuff as well.
Yeah, cool. So there's that to anyone who's watching this and hasn't heard, you can find that on Spotify, and there's various YouTube videos as well with some of your live performances. So catch those if you can. But yes, definitely variety, and it's a really interesting blend of styles that you got there to share with us. So really looking forward to having you probably the first time a harp's been on the stage at the Mars Bar. I don't know.
Nice.
We'll claim it now and see if anyone refutes it.
Yeah, we'll find out. Yeah,
that's the way to do it these days, isn't it? So yeah, but certainly, is this your first? I know you played Malvern before, so is this will this be a first in Worcester?
I think it is. Yeah, we played in Malvern. I think Stourport's fairly near you. We played at Worley's. But yeah, no, it's our first time in Worcester, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Grand, excellent, and we'll take it as a step to making the harp more commonplace.
Yes.
As you wish it to be in 20 years' time. No one bats an eyelid when a rock band turns up with a harp.
Exactly, that's the goal. That is the goal.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time today, and really looking forward to seeing you next Thursday. That's Thursday, the 14th of November. At the Mars Bar in Worcester. Great. Take a safe trip over across Cardiff, and we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday. Thank you.